Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Welcome to the Ties of Faith. I'm Ervin Desmet, your host.
And I'm Frank Brilliant, your co-host.
That's great, Frank, and I want to thank you for letting us come here to Brilliant City
Yeah.
and have a chance to talk. So can you explain a little bit about the city?
Sure, yeah. My grandfather, he founded the city, him and a couple buddies of his. And look at what he's done with the place. I mean, I, of course, have built upon his initial work. I live in that house over there, kind of that one with the smokestack. And I'm not sure where this building is in the middle, but over here.
That's a church, Frank.
Oh, okay. Well, it just kind of popped up. Some of my people kind of built it, and I gave them permission to use the land however they wanted. But back over here is my factory with the bigger smokestack.
All right.
And we employ about 90% of Brilliant City at my tie factory.
All right. Well, I'm sure we're going to find out a lot more about your successful business, Frank. But right now, we're going to be...
I could say it now.
No, but Frank.
Yeah.
We have a special guest coming in.
Oh, okay.
And we'd like to give that person a chance. It's Nick Perez, and he's got a really incredible story to tell us.
Hey, Ervin, how's it going?
Audio Jungle.
Nice to meet you, Frank. Thank
You
you.
have to get used to those tendencies. He tends to really, but we're going to deal with it. You and me, we're pals.
Right on.
Nick is a law student here in Sacramento. He goes to Presentation Parish, where I went. I was here in Sacramento for a while. And he's also a member of Veritas, which is a young Catholic adult group. Is that right?
That's right.
All right.
Wow, busy man.
A good man. You're gonna
Busy,
hear about
good
it.
man. Yeah.
So with your permission, Frank, here in Brilliant City,
Okay.
I'd like to ask Nick if you can share your faith journey with us.
Sure, absolutely. So I was baptized Catholic as a baby, received the sacraments before I was 12. I had all of them, I believe, 12, 13.
So you racked them up before age 12?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But it was it was more like racking it up because it was all external. It didn't affect my heart because I wasn't ready for them in a way, because I hadn't been catechized well.
What does that mean, catechized, to be catechized?
Yeah, I hadn't been taught the faith, the bare essentials. I didn't even know what a sacrament was, and I was receiving them, So there was something lacking there. But when I was 13, I asked my mom and grandma, why do I have to go to Mass if it just keeps repeating every 3 years, all the readings? I just go to Mass for 3 years, and I'm done.
Done.
That's exactly what I thought.
Check that box. I like it.
Yeah. Pretty
There's
logical.
more.
Okay.
There's more.
Okay. I'm listening.
Pretty logical for a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
But not really in a way, because, I decided then on not to go to church, and it led me down a pretty dark path. I was partying, and, by the time I was 16, 17, partying, just hanging out with girls and just looking for the here and now, not worrying about tomorrow.
How was that? What was that doing for you?
Honestly, it left me empty. I knew there was something lacking. And I didn't fully realize it till I was about 19. I was really asking harder questions like, who am I? What am I doing here?
No, I had that problem sometimes. I have social gatherings at my house, and they just weren't going right, but I realized that I had the wrong caterer, So I was able to find someone new, and man, the chow was really good then.
I think, Frank, if I might ask you, Nick is sharing something from the heart.
Oh.
Not from
I was in the
stomach. The heart.
I was in the gastrointestinal region, which is very close. It's in the thoracic cavity. It was close to the heart.
Let's listen, Frankie.
Okay. Back to this listen business.
To tell you the truth, Frank, I had a very similar experience because my caterer was the culture of death. Ooh. And I needed to switch up my catering for sure. So in a way, I can relate to what you're saying.
Huh. All right. Well, thanks, Nick. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
So
let's hear more from Nick.
So, when I was 19, I started asking the harder questions. I was just empty. So I went to my mom one night and said, she had already been going back to church, for a few years. And I had been making fun of her that whole time for going back. Like, why would you go to church? That was my perspective.
Big 19-year-old know-it-all, right?
Oh, man, I knew everything.
Okay, here we are.
So-
You're 19 and you know it all. So
Yeah. So
Okay.
so then I'm realizing I don't know it all, and so I go to my mom and say, "Mom, I have no idea who I am." I just started crying one night, just letting all my insecurities out. Just I have no idea what I'm doing. She was like, "I know where to take you." So she knocks on every church in Sacramento in the middle of the night, looking for a priest. We didn't find anybody, but we went back to our home parish, and the door was unlocked. So I had an experience in there that I can't fully describe, but just to say that hours and hours of praying and realizing that God is real, that he loves me, that he still wants to be in my life, even though I've disregarded him for so long. That was an overwhelming revelation.
So would you say that was an encounter
Absolutely.
with Jesus Christ?
Absolutely.
The love of God?
And the next day was even better because I went to confession and poured out my sins. Afterwards, I prayed in the chapel for a little bit, and I felt Jesus lifting off layers of my life that were in darkness and sin, like all the scars from the culture of death. I felt like him just taking it all away.
And it was basically an experiential moment.
Absolutely.
And it's hard to describe it. You couldn't see it, but you felt it, right?
Absolutely.
And we'd say that's the love of God and the Holy Spirit and all those mystical forces that are available to us if we're just trusting and willing to go there.
Absolutely.
Is that kind of how you felt?
Absolutely. The blood of Christ cleansed me that day. And then after that, I went outside and I was smiling like a kid again. I had true joy and peace that I could not describe, that I could not account for.
Kind of reminds me when I tried those kale chips and mushroom
Hold that
truffles
thought.
from the new
Sure.
caterer. Oh, woo! Those were so good.
Okay.
Similar? Am I with?
Well,
I love food too.
indescribable joy that Nick was experiencing, and yours based on those potato chips. But
Kale chips. Come
kale
on.
chips. But this
With
was
tahini and chili pepper.
okay.
Okay, if I remember correctly.
Did this involve a conversion experience of some kind?
Oh, clearly.
Oh,
I
and
mean,
how was that?
When you shift it from, stale bread with sugar-ridden jelly on it to these kale chips, delicacies, and mushroom truffles, that is transformational.
Well, then let's hear some more about what Nick's experience resulted in, how it changed his life, and then we'll get back to your potato chip.
Fair enough.
Okay, now Nick, back to you.
Sure.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah.
So let's say you've had this encounter with Jesus Christ, and so and you've had the indwelling of the Spirit and all those things, those mystical experiences. So how did your life change? Now listen up, Frank.
Yeah, go.
So it was definitely a honeymoon period for the first few weeks. I was just totally head over heels for God and for his church. Not fully understanding it, but just knowing that God is real. He saved me. So I just, I needed to just try to live it. And I remember one time specifically, I was picking up trash outside of my home parish. It's like accounting for my sins. I felt like in a way I was saying, this is for that sin, this is for that sin, making reparation. And the restaurant owner had called the police because they thought they were concerned for me for some reason. I probably looked kind of funny out there.
Yeah.
But the police showed up and they said, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm just cleaning up my father's house. And I pointed to the church.
Beautiful.
And as soon as I did that, they slapped the handcuffs on me.
They cuffed you.
They cuffed me. They didn't actually arrest me, but they felt that I was a threat enough. I needed to be restrained.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So they were fully in the material world. Frank, are you resonating with the material world part?
Well, yeah.
But see, Nick had an experience of the mystical world.
Well, he doesn't look like a very dangerous guy, though. That's just me.
Well,
He looks
but-
kind of friendly.
It was a dangerous idea, though.
Yeah.
It was a dangerous idea to think that God was your father and pointed to
Right,
church.
okay.
So they called my mom, and they said, hey, your son's down here. Are you aware? And she's like, oh, he just went through a conversion experience. My mom told him that he just went through a conversion. You need. They had no idea what she was talking about.
Yeah.
But
What was a conversion experience? Some sort of a physics thing about Anyway.
Sure, periodic table.
Yeah, periodic tables. No, conversion experience of the heart.
Right.
And the mystical, the joy of Jesus Christ coming into our lives. That's what a conversion experience is.
That's right. Absolutely.
So tell me now, so you've had this experience, and you can't explain it, but you lived it, and it overwhelmed you with that word that I picked up, that really deep joy. And so there you are. And at some point in time, I want to talk to you about, maybe give Frank a chance to respond to his type of joy. But here you are, a law student, using your critical thinking, and then you have this part of you that has this factor of not being able to see exactly what this mystical thing's all about. So maybe we can talk about that. The convergence of those are those doable together? But let's give Frank a chance. I mean, thank you for sharing that. Frank, what do you think of, how was your joy back to the potato chip conversion that you had? What kind of difference did it make?
Well, first of all, it was kale chips, and it was mushroom truffles. And I mean, just imagine that going down, rolling over the taste buds, just feeling like a new experience. You've never had it before in your life. And whoo, it's just the light goes on. And it's just, I can't go back to the old caterer. It's kind of like, Nick, can you go back to your old life?
Oh.
No. I struggle with it.
I mean, even in your wildest dreams, it's like, I try to pick up the phone, I try to even dial the old caterers, and it just, I can't do it. You know, it's just, I just think of that stale bread and that jelly sitting there on the toast that's been there for 6 months. You know, can you imagine that? Sometimes there's these little bacteria elements that start growing on the bread. So it's that bad. It's that bad.
I don't want to cut you off, Frank. You're here in your brilliant city, you know.
Yeah.
But I think there's lessons to be learned here.
But I'm just trying to see if, you know, Nick can relate. I mean, going back to the old ways.
That's a great question. The analogy with the jelly and toast is probably limited because, you know, it's a spiritual warfare every day with, you know, we're at war, Scripture says, with principalities, you know, and powers that we can't see. So the struggle is real. Every day you have to put off the old man. I can't say that I'm a saint yet for sure. But, you know, it's just, Jesus said, be perfect because your heavenly Father is perfect. So there's no excuse for not trying.
I mean, do you ever fall off the wagon? Like sometimes I think, you know, maybe I should have a little stale bread and jelly today.
Do I still sin? Absolutely.
Can we identify with that?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. That's why I cannot live without confession. If I didn't have confession, I mean, I don't know where I'd be right now. Definitely not in law school. Probably being arrested again somewhere.
Jesus is God, Jesus is Lord, Jesus has the victory.
We all have a call to greatness, a desire for it. We want to do something good.
Now is your time. You could change the world, and the world needs changing, so get busy.
Shalom World, God's own channel.
We're going to talk a little bit about how can you can be a thinker, and yet you can be a follower of Jesus Christ, and the two of those seem to be able to be doable at the same time. What do you think?
Sure. I mean, even our whole legal system was developed in Western civilization. Western civilization was developed largely by the Catholic Church. So even our whole legal system is based, you know, on Greek democracies, Thomas Aquinas thought. Thomas Aquinas himself, St. Thomas, would always present the arguments of his opponents the most fair way possible, and then he'd address them. So the Catholic Church is not afraid of reason. It just knows its limits.
So Frank, for example, Frank could become a Catholic and maintain his very sharp intellect, and yet maybe even become better.
Absolutely. Even the Catholic Church holds that by reason alone, unaided by grace, that we could come to the knowledge that there's one God. Just by reason alone. Didn't
Aquinas, or what was his name? Aquaman?
No, not Aquaman. Nice try.
Didn't he kind of have these certain proofs for God? You know, God's existence. Like for example, my proof is see this tie here. You know,
Yeah.
This is a 19th century design, 18th century, and hunting dogs. It's notice the brown veneer looking like tie that represents maybe a courtroom. And I'm kind of proud of this. I call it my legal tie, you know, and it works really well. So this, I could argue, is a proof for the existence of a really quality tie company, which I own, and I sell X amount of units per day, which generates revenue for my shareholders and employs 90% of the people in Brilliant City. That's one proof.
Great, great, Frank.
Aquaman maybe did something else.
No.
Sure.
Aquinas.
Aquinas.
Yeah.
Aquinas. Okay, sorry.
You're a good listener now.
So I missed that, yeah.
Okay.
So do you know his proofs? I mean, do you think they're valid? Do you think you can do that just by looking at reason and science and say, because A plus B equals C, then God exists?
Sure. One of his proofs that I think I like the most is that everything has a cause. He calls it contingency, that everything is contingent on another for its existence. And you can't keep going back infinitely. There has to be something that can exist by itself without any cause. And that's what we would call God. And he'd have to contain everything that we can see, because everything that we can see can't be a greater cause. It can't be greater than God.
Kind of like the unmoved mover, the prime mover, the beginning.
Exactly. It sounds like you studied.
Yeah.
Well-
what's this all about here?
Yeah.
I've read a few books. I mean, my last name isn't brilliant for no reason at all.
Fair enough.
So
Okay.
just a little quickie there. But I do remember that phrase, which always kind of stuck with me for some reason.
Well, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good.
That's good.
I don't know where that came from, but let's keep going.
Well, let's that you've challenged. Did you mind that challenge? I thought you did quite well on that.
Oh, thanks.
Engaging in our conversation, respecting everybody's where they're at.
Sure.
So let me. You might like this one. Let's say I asked Nick, well, how did God become man?
Yeah, that's
A heavy one, isn't it?
Absolutely. How did this uncaused cause, or this, thing that doesn't need any cause, become a finite human being?
Yeah.
There's a couple ways to answer that. The first one is he's God. I've heard it said like this: the problem with God is that he thinks he's God, so he can do what he wills. But also, how else could he condemn sin in the flesh? He could say, he could have given his grace any other way. He could have given his grace any way he chose. Could have given us his mercy any way he chose. But he chose to become man and suffer, and he could have given one teaspoon of his blood, but he gave it all, because that's how much he loves us. That's how much he came. He proved it by coming. He proved his love by coming. So
Now, I think, Frank, you might have some more questions in mind after I have one more.
Well, I got plenty of questions.
Yeah, well,
so
let me throw one more.
Are you going to ask one now, or should I go?
I want to ask Nick.
Okay.
As a member of Veritas, you're around other people of your age, and
Sure.
I think it's important to have, let's hear you talk about what it's like to be around other people that are on a spiritual path, that have more than just a material world, but they have that entree, that hunger for exploring the spiritual world and God's love. So what's it like to be with young people like that?
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, it's truly amazing. I still have friends that I've had from back in the old days, and they'll always be brothers in a way. But when you connect with someone who, even meeting someone for the first time who's Catholic, you could automatically start talking about the most amazing, out of this world things. And there's like a familial connection.
Kind of like when I go to a tie convention, I see other manufacturers, and immediately, we're down with the latest fabrics, the latest designs. It's just like whammo. We are buds to the end instantly.
That's true. That's a temporary end. So you guys have your end is to make the best tie.
Oh yeah.
And then our end is to go to heaven, which is the ultimate end. So maybe your friendships, over ties, although they're good, they're
solid. They're solid.
They're not deep
Well,
enough.
that's right. It could be the comparison between shallow water and deep water.
Absolutely.
So
Well, I mean, it's still water.
it's still
You know,
water.
I mean,
You might find some real goodies in the deeper water.
You're still wet. You're still wet.
Yeah, but you know, I appreciate your interest in this in this subject, Frank. And I'd like to. Do you have a question to ask Nick? And let's give him a chance. You know?
Yeah.
Because
Well, I mean,
we love the guy.
yeah. I mean, I definitely recognize this whole spiritual business, and but why do you need this institution? You know, it seems like there's this nutty church out there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but sinners run the church. Okay, and are we to follow these sinners? You know, like it's divine law, and you know, go to church and do all these, not meet on Friday and blah blah blah, do all these devotions. You know, is that really necessary? The big movement, at least in Brilliant City, is spiritual but not religious. You know, that way you keep the good stuff, you go spirit. You know, which you know, I don't completely understand. I admit that. But
Let's get to the point, Frank.
this religious, you know, what's the deal with that?
Let's get to the point,
Why do
Frank.
we need
Frank.
all these sinners to
Okay.
tell us what to do?
And cut. Now, yes.
Okay. So that's a great question. Our culture definitely prefers the spiritual, not religious slogan. I've heard it a million times. But history attests that Jesus Christ really walked the earth. Like we have, you know, even Roman historians, Jewish historians that have said that Jesus Christ walked the earth. So, and he claimed to be God. So this is true. So C.S. Lewis and a couple of other philosophers say, you know, well, there's only a few choices when it comes to Jesus. Either he's lying and you don't follow him, or he's God and you bow down and worship him. So this same Jesus also said to Peter, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it." So, as a Catholic, I believe that the Catholic Church, the only church that could possibly be the church that Jesus Christ founded, is the church that has existed since then. Now, there has been many churches that have popped up throughout the ages, and we love our separated brethren, but you know, they don't have the fullness of the truth. So the spiritual but not religious is a problem because it doesn't call you to anything other than what your own subconscious tells you to do. I feel a lot of people who are spiritual, not religious, seems like they baptize their own libido or their own ego, like I can make my own rules and follow, you know, however I want to follow God.
But when the market validates what you're doing, isn't that an indication you're on the right track?
I mean, that's a trick question.
He has a way of getting into that area that he loves to do, which is the dollars and the cents. And
Sure.
it's part of it. I have to say, Frank, of course it's a part of.
I mean, some people may call me materialistic.
Well, I would think I would.
I mean, just
Among
outright.
others.
They just wouldn't mince words to be like, this is you. You know, some people. But as you know, I am quite skilled in lingual activities and various thought patterns, and I can go in all different directions. Materialism just being one of many. And but I want to learn more about the spiritual. And I hear what Nick is saying. I'm not completely knocking it down. I want him to keep going. I mean, there's all these celibate priests and all these rules and regulations. It just seems out of touch with the times, the church. Would you agree with that?
I'd have to disagree. One of my favorite authors, Peter Kraft, says that, you can't tell truth with the clock. You don't look at the year and say, okay, what's the truth now? The Catholic Church isn't chronologically snobbish. It doesn't think that just because we're the ones happen to be walking around this earth that we have all the answers. Another great quote, G.K. Chesterton said that we bow to the democracy of the dead. Like we go to there's all these people before us that have, developed these truths.
Like my grandfather who built Brilliant City.
Very similar.
We stand on the shoulder of giants.
We do.
Yeah.
All right.
We do.
The time has come for us to depart, and I want to thank you so much, Nick, for giving us the time. It was a wonderful conversation. So let me give you a hug.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, man. Peace be with you, brother.
Absolutely.
God bless.
Nice seeing you, Frank.
Thanks, Nick. I learned a lot. Giving me a lot to think about. I'm going
Right
to
on.
talk about it with my buddy Erv here, and we'll see where it goes.
Oh, Frank, wasn't Nick's story amazing?
Incredible.
Well, okay, and so it affirmed what I've always believed, that there's the power of Jesus Christ is available for all of us. And I'm just recommits myself to my own faith. What did you learn?
I learned a lot, Erv. I was really happy to talk to Nick, and you're not going to believe this, but I think I actually might stop in to that church up on the hill that I usually just drive by at high speeds in my sports car.
Good for you,
just
man.
See what's going on. I recognize the need for a community and to connect in an institution. I mean, can't all be that bad. I'm going to stop in, and I'll let you know how it goes.
Well, I'm proud of you, Frank.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, that's all the time we have. But in the meantime, don't forget those ties of faith.